Hey everybody, this is the Coach's Corner. I'm your host, Montana Finley. Our guest this week, a man probably a lot of you recognize, a well-trusted voice in sports here in the area, editor of the Chattanooga Times Free Press, Stephen Hargis. How's it going?
Thanks, Montana. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming in and doing this. Like I said, I'm sure a lot of people are familiar, but for those that aren't initiated, how did you get your start in writing, in sports writing?
Yeah, when I was in high school, we had some creative writing classes and things like that. I had a teacher, a really sweet lady, Miss Helen Brooks, that taught the class, and she was really encouraging. Some of the short stories and things that I would write for the class, I remember one time she kept me after the class and said, you may want to look into pursuing writing in college and see if you like it. And I knew I wanted to do something related to sports. I've always been sports minded and loved, growing up watching a lot of sports and playing some, and just really, always liked being around it. Didn't know if I wanted to get into the coaching aspect of it or whatever, but once I got into college, I really kind of gravitated more toward, I enjoyed the writing aspect of it, and had a professor there that, told me that the advice that I'm sure a lot of people have heard, that if you can find something you enjoy doing and find someone who will pay you to do it, you'll never actually have to work for a living your whole life. So I thought, well, I really think I enjoy writing. Let me try this. Was lucky enough to get on with the before the two papers merged in 1998. I was able to get on with the Chattanooga Free Press. Roy Exum was the editor, the sports editor at the time, and he came locally for one of the I think it was a Lions Club meeting or one of the local meetings and business people, and my pastor at the time knew what I was pursuing in college and took me there and introduced me to him, and Roy, to his credit, said, hey, we need someone on the weekends to just come in and answer phones of games that we're not covering. So that's kind of where it started. I did that, and by the fall, that was in the spring of 1990, by the fall, I was a full-time writer, and just really loved doing that for a living, and have kind of stuck with it through the years, and eventually was able to move my way up.
Do you remember the first game that you covered? Is that something that you...
It was a baseball game. Actually, I had a friend, the first story really that I got to put a byline on, it wasn't a game. I had a friend, Kelby Farrell, that I knew, and Kelby was actually hit in the head by a line drive baseball, pitching batting practice at Lookout Valley, and was in some pretty bad shape, and because of my relationship with him and his family, knew them, and went in and did like a feature story on him about his recovery. Oh. So that was actually my first byline was on a friend of mine who was recovering from a pretty severe injury, and then from there they just, I guess some of the editors at the time liked it and started sending me out to some games. I think the first few months I covered almost exclusively North Georgia games. I was covering a lot of teams that are in the North Georgia area. Didn't really cover a lot of games locally until probably a year or so into my career.
I hate to smile. I'm not smiling at the injury, but Coach K, I know Coach K is great.
Yeah,
great guy.
really super guy.
It's hard not to smile even when he's brought up.
Yeah, exactly. Just he's always laughing and cutting up with kids, and just in it for the right reasons, and comes from just a great family. So yeah, absolutely.
So I would say, past being a reporter and an editor, I would say you're a sports historian. Maybe I can give you that title.
I'm an old guy who's watched a lot of sports. We'll put it that way.
That's a sports historian.
Yeah,
that's what that's called.
There you go.
Have you ever seen anything or know of anything that has put a halt to sports the way that COVID has?
No, absolutely not. I mean, there's been things that happened through the years, nationally or locally. I remember 9/11, since we just had the 20-year anniversary of that. I remember everything came to a standstill for days. Sports, the Tennessee-Florida game was postponed into November. College and pro football and Major League Baseball, everything that was on the calendar to be played was pushed back for several days. That's probably the one that jumps to my memory first, just because we just passed the 20-year anniversary of that. But nothing at all like this. There's always, whether it's natural disasters, hurricanes, or things like that may affect one certain area, but nothing that affects, not only nationally but globally. Shut down, soccer around the world. I mean, it's nothing like this remotely close.
I was thinking maybe the Second World War. That's what I obviously was not around for it, but
yeah, I was going to say I thought you meant in my memory. I don't go quite back. So obviously there were the Second World War. There would have been a lot of the athletes who fought in the Second World War, and things were halted there. But I guess historically, yes, that would probably be the last thing that we've had, at least in America, to stop things the way that the pandemic has.
Obviously not in your timeline. I didn't mean
just a couple of years. You're giving me a few extra years there, Montana.
Well, I think a question that a lot of people would like to know, and just from your opinion, I know you don't have all the answers, but are we going to get back to playing sports, or how is the rest of the season going?
Yeah, I think you'll see at the high school level. I think you'll see some dips here and there. Because unfortunately we have spikes in certain parts of the state where the coronavirus may. We've just seen it locally here, where the numbers may get to a point where you have to halt some games. I know there's more than football being played, even though it's football's king here. A lot of other sports that are played around the state, and pretty much all sports have been affected by it. Collegiately, I think most of the rules that are in place right now are saying that if you have guys who test positive, they're going to carry on the game without you. Those guys may be sidelined. They're going to carry on the game. If you have X number of players that can't play and where you can't play the game, it's just a forfeit. So they're going to move on. They're not going to do a lot of postponements and things like that at the collegiate level. And I think, the pro football, unless there's a huge spike, I think they've got a pretty good grasp of what they're doing right now too.
So there is light at the end of the tunnel.
I think so. I'm an optimist. I'm always an optimist. I'd like to think that we've gone through so much. Everyone has gone through so much in a year and a half plus. I'd like to think that we are now seeing light at the end of the tunnel. Certainly, if you look at how far we've come, where we were the spring of 2020, where the spring sport kids in high school lost, seniors lost the last chance to play high school sports, which is, just was heartbreaking to hear about a lot of those situations. And all sports were shut down. And now where we are, last year we had Major League Baseball and NFL football, but empty stadiums. Mm-hmm. Well, now, we've progressed at least to the point now where the stadiums are, for the most part, are full with fans. The schedules are pretty much, back to normal. So I think we're certainly progressing toward where we'd like to be, where we were before. Obviously, we've got a long ways to go with the spikes that we've had just recently. That kind of serves as a reminder that we've got a ways to go still, but we're on the right direction, it looks like.
And I know you have some word with the TSSAA and putting together the Blue Cross Bowl, going to be at Finley Stadium, very close to home, exciting for our area teams. What is the word from them as far as their plans?
They're full steam ahead right now. I talked to Tim Morgan and his folks quite a bit as they're preparing to host it, and there's a lot of plans for, they're even at the point right now where we're talking about, small details of things they want to do to kind of heighten the experience for the fans, kind of have some things out there in that pavilion for fans to do that are interactive, for the kids and the fans. So they're certainly making a lot of plans right now for that. There's no thought of not having it or anything like that, fortunately. So I think, if we could have it last year with the numbers where we were and what we came through, I certainly think we're full steam ahead toward that this year, and it is very exciting that's going to be in Chattanooga. I remember when the spring fling used to be in Chattanooga, and you had enormous crowds at all the venues. But now for football, which is kind of king in the South and big, highly supported in Tennessee, I think. I'm really anxious to see what those crowds are going to look like for the games, and we've got some local teams that have a really good chance of being there. That would be extra sweet, to have some local teams from Chattanooga area.
Yeah, I'd like
and
to be
especially
there.
here, to be there and watch that. So that'd be kind of cool.
Well, some good news, ladies and gentlemen. There will be a state championship this year. There will be
certainly so, and unless something unforeseen, I think we're well on our way.
All right. Well, we're going to take our first break here. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more football.
They're back. Western Sizzlin' is now open, offering kitchen menu items including their new grilled Atlantic salmon. Or enjoy side items like fried okra, baked potatoes, macaroni and cheese, a new salad bar, fresh baked yeast rolls, and dessert choices. At Western Sizzlin', full catering service is available, as well as parties of up to 10 per table. For their to-go customers, Western Sizzlin' is now offering delivery with dinnerdelivered.com or curbside pickup at 423-942-5777. Come on by and give Western Sizzlin' a try and enjoy their new hours. That's right, Western Sizzlin' is now open 7 days a week, 10:30 a.m. till 9 p.m. Western Sizzlin', located just off I-24 at exit 155, 1130 Tennessee Highway 28 in Jasper. Western Sizzlin', they can't wait to serve you. And don't forget, now offering delivery with dinnerdelivered.com or curbside pickup at 942-5777. Western Sizzlin'.
B&B Recycling is proud to support the Coach's Corner. Committed to providing honest and quality customer service under new ownership, Paul Blevins and crew are waiting to fulfill all your everyday and commercial scrap metal needs. For prices and hours, call 256-437-9999 or find B&B Recycling on Facebook. That's 256-437-9999 and ask about free container services for commercial accounts. Back to the show. Hey everybody, we're back with the Coach's Corner. We got Times Free Press editor Stephen Hargis here. We were talking a little bit about football before we went to the break, and I hesitate to even bring this up a little bit, but it's been a heavily debated topic the past couple days. Mm-hmm. South Pittsburgh's coach, Chris Jones, stepped down from his position, going to take a position back in the CFL. I just wanted to know when and kind of how you, because you reported it first on Twitter, you put the news out there. Mm-hmm. So when and how did you obtain that information?
I mean, one of the good things, I guess, about being an older guy is you kind of develop a lot of sources, and whether it be parents or of players, things like that, you know, they'll hear rumors is the way things always start. Hey, I heard this is happening. And so typically what you'll do is go straight to the source, go to a coach and ask, or an administrator at the school and ask, hey, maybe nothing to this, but I heard this. Is there anything to it? And so that's kind of how that happened. And heard about it early, I guess, you know, the day of, the morning of, that it looked like he was leaving to go back to CFL. So called, you know, Paige or texted Paige Hill, the principal, and Heath Grider, the assistant principal and athletic director, and just said, hey, what can you tell me? Is there anything to this? Of course, you know, they're like, yeah, unfortunately, it's true. He's going back. So then all of a sudden you kind of get into newspaper mode of, okay, let me gather all the information and everything that I need, get some comments and things, and start putting the story together. So, you know, it's always the most important thing is you know, the big difference between social media, whether it be Facebook or Twitter, and what we do in the newspaper business. You have to have everything confirmed from an actual source. So, you know, that was the first step, was to say, okay, well, I've heard this, let me call an administrator and see what's going on. I had reached out to Chris, you know, just to kind of get all the information from all the sides and start piecing it together. And
what did you hear from Chris? What did he tell you directly?
Yeah, I mean, he just said it was an opportunity he couldn't pass up, you know, for his family, obviously, back in the CFL. You know, I think obviously there's a huge money difference between coaching professionally and coaching at the high school level. So you can't, anytime I've had a coach at any level explain things when it's a better opportunity for their family. You know, obviously I'm someone with a family myself. If someone from the New York Times called me tomorrow and said they're going to pay me, you know, 10 times what I'm making now, you got to look into it. I mean, you got to do whatever's best for your family. So I don't think anybody should ever hold a grudge against someone else. I think the timing is the big thing. I think around town was just the fact of if there had been a way for him to maybe make it through his season this year, because, you know, obviously you got a lot of hurt feelings between the kids, the parents, things like that, just because you're right in the middle, not even halfway through the season, you're kind of in the middle of the season. So I think that's where a lot of the frustration stemmed from the supporters and the parents, was just the timing of it.
Mm-hmm. And Friday, the Pirates will be playing Whipple. Heath Grider, assistant principal, Wesley Stone, longtime assistant coach at South Pittsburg, they're going to be stepping in as co-head coaches. Do you know how that decision came about? Who put?
I think, obviously Wesley's been on the staff. When I spoke to him, I think he said this is 17 years, and Heath has been on the staff prior to this year for 24 years. I think, obviously, as the athletic director, Heath, his initial response was, what do we do moving forward? We've got a game to get ready for. How can we get ready for it in the best means possible? And so he looked on the staff and said, here's the guy who's got the most experience. He's been an offensive coordinator at South Pittsburg a couple of years. He was a defensive coordinator at Boyd Buchanan. He's heavily involved. The kids know him, they like him, they respect him. And then Heath, with his background, he grew up around his dad, his older brother, and obviously we're both head coaches there. He just never seemed like he's had opportunities to be the head coach. He just never, he kind of more migrated toward the administrative role and also as an assistant coach so he could spend more time with his family, but he knew immediately the program needed him. Mm-hmm. And so I think he decided it was in the best interest of the kids and the program if he went and helped out in any means possible and has Coach Stone kind of overseeing things. I think it'll be a good, those two guys know the program. They played there. They know the atmosphere. They know all that. Wesley, obviously, as a part of the staff already, he knows the ins and outs of everything. The kids know him, so there's not as much of an adjustment there. So I think they've definitely made the best of a bad situation, being put in a bad situation. And, moving forward for him, I think, those two guys, Wesley's a very excitable guy that the kids like. Heath is a very calming presence, so I think the two of them kind of be the yin and the yang on the sidelines. I think they'll be fine. They've got a very talented team. So it's just a matter of bringing those kids back together and rallying them. And from when speaking with Heath earlier for the story that we did, when I spoke to him yesterday, he said it seemed like the kids, the players, were already beginning to rally around each other, and the community was rallying around the team. So I think you get over that initial shock. It's like a lot of other things. You get over the initial shock and embarrassment of the situation, and once you get back out there on the practice field, everything returns to normal.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're doing what you've been doing for months, and you prepare for the next opponent. And you just kind of move on from there.
That was going to be kind of my next question is what do you think it does to the team? But they're rallying together.
It can do one of two things. It either fractures them and they go, they're very talented. They've got an opportunity to make another deep run in the playoffs. It could fracture them where it affects them emotionally, where they're not as focused and they could, lose that focus and lose it at a point where they normally wouldn't. Or it could rally them where it gives them kind of a new cause to play for each other. And I've seen it work both ways. The one thing, in this area, whether it be at South Pittsburg or Marion County, there's no shortage of people who care about the programs. And typically there's no shortage of guys who are involved in the coaching aspect of it, where if something were to happen with a head coach like this situation, you have other people on the staff who can just step right in and fill in. They know everything about, the X's and O's. They know the culture of the programs, and so they can kind of help the kids adjust and prepare. And I think this, we've seen it before, and I think that's kind of what you'll see from South Pittsburg.
And you may not be able to answer this, you may not know necessarily, but if you had to guess who they would look towards to fill the role permanently, I know they're not going to make a decision till after this season, but where do you think they would go there?
I think right now when I ask Heath about this season and beyond, they're in rally mode to just get ready for this game.
Mm-hmm.
And then beyond that, it's the rest of the season. I don't think they've looked at, he said they're not even thinking about beyond this week, much less after this season yet. So I think when the season's over, you come together, everybody that's involved, Heath Grider, Paige Hill, Wesley Stone, all the people who are involved in it right now, you kind of come together, talk about is this something, does Wesley want to be the head coach moving forward? Do they want to open it up and take applications for it? I think first they just got to get through this season and kind of see where they are and then kind of evaluate what's the next step.
Well, sort of taking a step back, we were talking about COVID and all the cancellations. I know one game that I personally would have liked to see was South Pittsburg versus CCS. I know you deal with a lot of the Chattanooga schools, the prep schools up there. Was there any one matchup that you didn't get to see that you?
That was one that would have been interesting. One that I'm glad that got rescheduled is the Tyner Marion game.
Okay.
It would be another one because Marion, obviously, very talented team, has a chance themselves to make another deep run in the playoffs. Tyner's kind of an unknown. I mean, they went through a lot of coaching upheaval before the season, and they're late where they basically had 3 coaches in the span of just a few weeks. I fully expected them to kind of have a drop off, maybe some kids that lost interest, maybe transfer, things like that. But before the season even started, when I was at one of their practices, you start to look around and you go, they got some good looking dudes out here. I mean, they got some guys that look like they can play, and they've certainly proven that. They're now undefeated. So I thought that's a really huge matchup. It was going to be a great early season region matchup between those 2 teams, and they've had some absolute wars through the years between Marion and Tyner. That's one I'm glad that got rescheduled, because I think that can be a really good matchup. I think the one that you mentioned, South Pitt and CCS, just the number of athletes that CCS has, they've struggled. I mean, they opened with McCallie and had Baylor last week. They had Silverdale Baptist that took it to them pretty good. They've had a brutal schedule. But those guys, they've got a couple of sophomores. One, Boo Carter, who's already committed to Tennessee. Another, A.J. Wallace, who's got an offer from Kentucky. And they've got some other kids who are getting big-time looks. So they're very young. They're a sophomore-oriented team. But I thought just the athletes on both sides, it was going to be one of those that probably, 38 to 35 type games where whoever had the ball last. I thought that could have been a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, that was one that I was personally looking forward to. Very
the athletes and on turf, on CCS's turf, it would have been a track meet. So yeah.
Well, we do have some fun things to talk about. It's not all I don't know what the word I'm looking for is.
Doom and gloom.
Yeah, doom and gloom. There it is. We got some fun things. We're gonna take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about some of those things.
Sounds good.
This is Coach's Corner.
Harbin Automotive, located at 570 Micah Way in Scottsboro, has over 600 vehicles in stock and guarantees with Harbin's value pricing. Any customer can rest assured they're paying the lowest price anywhere in the nation on every model line that Harbin has in stock. Providing a range of new, used, and certified pre-owned vehicles, anyone at Harbin Automotive, from the knowledgeable staff of the Business Development Center to the fully staffed finance department, all Harbin employees can help customers find the price and style they're searching for, while the service department could get that new car ready to be driven from the lot or the showroom in a matter of minutes. Shopping for a new or used vehicle can be a big decision. However, that doesn't mean it can't be one that's enjoyed by everyone. Visit Harbin Automotive, 570 Micah Way in Scottsboro. Open Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. till 7 p.m. Saturday, 7:30 a.m. till 6 p.m. Call 256-259-6400 or shop online anytime at harbinautomotive.com. Make the short drive and save at Harbin Automotive, Scottsboro, Alabama.
I look to the tower for vision, because someday I'll have to send him to college, and I want to be ready.
We look to the tower for strength, because cash flow sometimes doesn't flow at all. You need a strong partner behind you.
My family looks to the tower for innovation.
Well, that and lollipops for the children.
Look to the tower. Tower Community Bank. A higher standard. TowerCommunityBank.com.
B&B Recycling is proud to support the Coach's Corner. Committed to providing honest and quality customer service under new ownership, Paul Blevins and crew are waiting to fulfill all your everyday and commercial scrap metal needs. For prices and hours, call 256-437-9999 or find B&B Recycling on Facebook. That's 256-437-9999 and ask about free container services for commercial accounts. Back to the show. Hey, welcome back to the Coach's Corner. We got Stephen Hargis here from the Times Free Press. One of the fun things I wanted to talk to you about, I have your book here, 8 Hateful Miles. Kind of just wanted to hear how putting this together went, from the idea to the whole process of it.
It was that was an idea that happened years before the book actually came about. I kind of noticed that through the years, a lot of the stories at dinner parties and things that I would retell from being on the sidelines, whether you're with friends from Jasper or friends from South Pittsburg, and you kind of talking football, and I would tell some of the stories, not just of when they played each other, but big playoff games or championships or whatever. And people were always kind of fascinated, and it kind of dawned on me, it's like, people who are in the stands don't get to hear some of the the pregame locker room talks or halftime things that happen or things that are said on the field. And so I thought that'd be kind of cool to at some point do a book about that. And then it just really, all the bizarre things that would happen in that rivalry on both sides. I mean, just people in Chattanooga were like, "There's no way that's true." And I was like, "No, it actually happened." And so I thought, well, this might actually be kind of a cool way to put a book together, just this rivalry, because it's so unique. I've been at Tennessee, football games, and people ask where you're from, and you'll mention it, and the first thing they talk about is, I've been to one of the, when they played Marion County, I've been to one of those games, and it was unbelievable how those people feel toward each other and that kind of thing. So you kind of start to realize it's very unique, and even games I've been to, whether Baylor, McCallie, Bradley, Cleveland, Alcoa, Maryville, those type things, and you're like, you don't really see the same type atmosphere at those games as you would a Marion South Pitt game. So all that kind of came together to where I just finally decided, I wanted to put it all together and see what we had as far as a book. Spent several months on, off days from work or weekends or whatever, just either calling folks to set up interviews for it or actually sitting down to write it. And the writing part of it was actually one of the easiest things. I mean, just the stories kind of told themselves. You talk to a lot of people, and I'd go through some of the archives of stories from games or things, and it would jog memories. And so actually sitting down to write it was a lot of fun. Got to know some folks that I didn't know very well before that now I consider friends, who really helped me out a lot as far as, some information for that. So it was a lot of fun. It was a labor of love. It was a lot of hours spent working on it, but it was something that I thoroughly enjoyed and very, very proud of it. Wanted to make sure that, obviously, me being a South Pitt grad, I'm very aware that, when the book was going to come out, that there would be people from Marion who would scour over it looking for any reason to think that it was slanted in any way. So I wanted to make sure that the folks from Marion on their chapters, that we gave just as many, if you're going to give recognition to a state champion for one side, you do it for the other. Recognition for a college player, someone who goes on to play college, you do it for the other, and try to keep it as back and forth as possible so that both sides could be highlighted. And so that it came about really better than I thought when I sat down. Once I actually looked at it, I was like, that's something I'm actually really proud of.
Do you have any favorite stories that are in this book? Anything that you heard along the way that sticks with you? Anything that you can say on?
I was going to say a lot of them were the things, the funnier ones were the things you couldn't even put in the book. But I mean, a lot of it's just the tit for tat, back and forth stuff that the fans would do with each other. And as usual, a lot of it was more the adults than it was the kids. But I mean, nothing comes specifically to mind, like no one thing. It's just kind of every year there was always something that would happen. I would always laugh that when you get to Thursday, you're like, man, it's been kind of a quiet week. Nothing's really happened before the game. And something would always explode either Thursday night or Friday. One side or the other would do something or say something that would tick off the other one, and then all of a sudden, there you go. The fuse was lit then, and that was something you could count on pretty much every year, that there was going to be something just bizarre. It would either be the South Pitt kids going to Marion, breaking in and pulling the goalpost down, on the field, and you're just like, they did what? I mean, things that just don't happen anywhere else, that have happened kind of back and forth here.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, to that point, were you a little upset to see the schools not schedule each other this year?
Oh, absolutely. That was one of the things. I even said something when Chris said that he called and said we're gonna cancel the rivalry, and I was like, why? Mm-hmm. And he just he said I feel like it's just gotten too negative on both sides. It's just not positive. And I thought, I didn't like it. I know there's been a lot.
Maybe making a point,
Yeah,
right.
And I know there's a lot of negativity on both sides, and I get where he was coming from. I just really, as someone who enjoys the game itself, I've seen high school football when Division II happened. We've lost too many good rivalries. The old Red Bank and McCallie football rivalry was a lot of fun. We lose way too many of those type games that are special. I go to way too many games now in the Chattanooga area where the atmosphere is just kind of dead. There's the parents that are there and a few fans, but there's very few electric atmospheres. That was one you could count on every year, no matter if it was 8 miles up the road or 8 miles this way. It didn't matter. It was going to be an electric atmosphere, and there would be people. I would see coaches from other teams in the Chattanooga area whose teams might be off that night who would bring most of their team just to watch it and get to experience that kind of atmosphere. It was just something that was really special and unique to our area. And I think the kids all enjoyed it. I get it. It was very heated. By far the most heated rivalry I can think of that I've ever been around at the high school level. But I really enjoyed just kind of the back and forth. And when it was good, it was really, really good. When it was negative, when adults would do some things that would cause negative attention, obviously it would embarrass either community. But when it was good, it was a lot of fun. And so hopefully, you let little time pass by, hurt feelings soothe a little bit and get the rivalry renewed, and it won't take long before those hurt feelings are hurt again, I'm sure. But yeah, I miss it. I mean, you look on the schedule now, and there's not as many games that you get excited about like you do that one.
Mm-hmm. Who would you say were there any years that stuck out between that rivalry that you can, or players?
The 90s, I mean, it was kind of, for me, it was kind of a lot of fun in the 90s because both programs were either at an elite level or on their way to being elite. And so you had a lot of, you had the Eric Westmorelands at Marion and Anthony Martin, God rest his soul. Great players at Marion. You had, the Perry Hutchinses and Corey Tiptons at the same time at South Pittsburg. You had some really gifted athletes who played on both sides. And those teams, the 90, basically 90 through 95 Marion South Pitt rivalries, you had some that were as good games or as talented a teams as we've had in the area here. Those 92, 94, 95 Marion teams could have played with anybody in any classification back then. And South Pitt, as a 1A school, was kind of hanging with them for the most part. In most of those games, it was a good back and forth game. The 94 game, I think it was 6-0 Marion, and the only score is Eric Westmoreland returning an interception like 70 yards for a touchdown, and even the extra point was blocked. I mean, it's like, they just were so stingy with each other, nobody was giving an inch, and that was just an absolute battle and just a great game, and one I was glad to be a part of and watch. That was probably one of the highlight games. Marion wins that one, goes on and wins the state championship, and they pretty much steamrolled everybody else they played. I think that might have been the closest game they had all year. South Pitt likewise goes on and wins the state championship too, so that was, that's something that was really special and unique for the valley or for the county. To have those two teams go and win a state championship and open the season against each other, and just a real classic.
Do you have any idea what the next book may be about? Is there another one coming?
It's weird. I get these ideas and I'll start to work. I've probably got 3 different books. One of them's a children's book of all things. But I've got like 3 different books that I've started, and just kind of, as inspiration strikes, I'll work on it for a few days, a couple of weeks, whatever. And then it's the one thing you can't really rush the creative process. If I don't feel creative or I don't feel like writing, I just put it away, and it's saved on my computer, and I'll go back and work on it again some other time. So I've got some ideas. I mean, they're not far enough along yet where I'm close to being able to publish a book, but I've got some things I want to work on.
Well, we've started a bit of a tradition around here. It's our first maybe 2 months into doing this, but we've built a little tradition. We like to have our guests sign something when they come in. I was hoping maybe you could sign this for us.
Absolutely. And now you realize this will devalue whatever the book is valued at now. It will devalue the book. So.
Oh, you can't say that. It's a signed copy. That instantly makes it more valuable, I would say. While he's signing this, I'll take this time to say find us on Facebook at Coach's Corner-TN. You can find us on YouTube if you miss us on The River or WPG. All the shows get on YouTube, so you can check us out there. Stephen, I appreciate the time.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate you coming on. Maybe get you back someday. We'll
just let me know. I'd love to.
Alrighty. Until next time, this has been the Coach's Corner.